Have you ever had a moment when time seemed to pause, when you looked up at the sky or stared into someone's eyes and something inside you whispered, "There's more to this life than what I've been told"? Maybe it happened during a dream you couldn't explain, or when someone you loved passed away, and yet you felt their presence more vividly than ever. Maybe it was a quiet moment when the noise of the world faded and you felt something vast, something timeless, looking through your eyes. What if I told you that moment wasn't random, that what you felt was a glimpse behind the curtain, a tiny crack in the illusion of reality? What we call reality may only be a shadow of something far greater. In the next few minutes, we'll take a journey, not just through science, but through mystery, through ancient wisdom and modern breakthroughs, to explore a question that has haunted humanity for centuries. What if consciousness doesn't live inside your brain, but your brain lives inside your consciousness? 1. The illusion of reality. What you see isn't all there is. When I was about 7 years old, I remember lying on the grass one afternoon, staring at the clouds and wondering why the sky looked so impossibly blue. I asked my dad, "Is the sky really blue, or does it just look that way?" He smiled and said, "Good question. It looks blue to us, but it isn't really blue. That's just how your eyes see it." That answer blew my little mind. Turns out, we don't see reality as it is. We see a version that our brain constructs for us. Our eyes only detect a tiny slice of the electromagnetic spectrum. We can't see X-rays, we can't see radio waves. Bees can see ultraviolet light, snakes detect infrared. Reality as we know it is filtered, cropped, simplified. Imagine wearing a pair of VR goggles your whole life. You'd think that digital world was the only world, until one day you took them off. That's kind of what scientists and philosophers are starting to suggest about our everyday perception. Neuroscientist Donald Hoffman says evolution shaped us not to see the truth, but to see what helps us survive. We're living in a user interface, not the raw code, and that's a little unsettling, but also kind of magical. Because it means there's more out there. It means what we see isn't all there is. So here's the first key. Our senses don't reveal reality. They reveal a story, filtered through a lens of survival. But if reality isn't just out there, then who's creating the version we experience? To answer that, we have to go within. 2. Your brain is a filter, not a factory of consciousness. Have you ever been in nature, completely still, and suddenly felt something larger than yourself? Like the forest was alive, and you were just tuning in? Moments like that can make you wonder, where does consciousness actually come from? For centuries, we've been told a simple story, that the brain is like a machine producing thoughts and feelings the way a factory produces goods. But what if that story is backward? What if your brain isn't creating consciousness, but actually filtering it? Think of it like a radio. The music you hear isn't coming from inside the radio, it's broadcasted from elsewhere. The radio just tunes in. Some scientists and mystics believe our brain might work the same way. It's called the filter theory, and it suggests consciousness is not produced but received. Like light through stained glass, your brain shapes the beam, but it doesn't generate it. Why does this matter? Because if it's true, then you are already connected to something far bigger. The mind isn't trapped in the brain, it's channeled through it. And that means things like near-death experiences, telepathy, or sudden spiritual insight may not be so impossible after all. They might just be signals that slip through the static. So if your brain is a lens rather than a light bulb, then what happens when that lens changes? What if you could shift your perception and see reality in an entirely new way? To explore that, we need to take a closer look at dreams, because they might not be just random noise after all. 3. What happens when the filter breaks? The death paradox. Have you ever heard someone say, "When my grandmother passed, it felt like she was still there"? Not just in memory, but as if a quiet presence lingered in the room. These moments, hard to explain, but deeply real, whisper to us that maybe death isn't the end. Maybe it's a transition. Remember how we said your brain might be a filter, like a radio? So what happens when that filter breaks? According to the filter theory, when the brain stops working, in other words, when we die, consciousness doesn't disappear. It's released, like a wave returning to the ocean. like removing tinted glasses and seeing light in its full brilliance. Across cultures and backgrounds, people who've had near-death experiences often describe the same things: a sense of timelessness, overwhelming love, and a knowing that we're more than just this body. Now, skeptics will say it's just the brain hallucinating on its way out. But how do we explain people describing things they couldn't have possibly seen, like what doctors were doing after they were declared clinically dead? Some researchers believe the mind continues, even after brain activity flatlines, and if that's true, then death may not be a wall, but a doorway. The death paradox is this: what we fear as the end might actually be the moment we wake up. That's not just poetic, it's a quiet revolution in how we understand life itself. And maybe, just maybe, that's why so many ancient traditions spoke of dying before you die. Because when we lose the fear of death, we begin to truly live. So what happens when you're still alive, but the filter momentarily weakens? Let's talk about dreams. 4. Near-death experiences. Glimpses beyond the veil. Imagine floating above your body, watching doctors scramble to save you, while you feel perfectly calm. You're no longer afraid. Instead, you feel light, as if you've come home to something ancient and familiar. This is the story many people tell after they come back from the edge of death. Near-death experiences, or NDEs, have been reported for centuries, but in recent decades, science has started listening. People describe leaving their body, entering a tunnel of light, and sometimes even meeting deceased loved ones or beings of light. They often return with a sense of clarity, as if they've seen behind the veil. And here's the most fascinating part. These experiences are shockingly similar across cultures, ages, and religions. Whether you're a child in America or a monk in Tibet, the storylines echo each other. Skeptics argue it's just brain chemistry, a surge of DMT, oxygen loss, or a final electrical storm. But here's the thing. Some people accurately report events that happened in the room or outside the room while their brain was clinically dead. How is that possible? It raises a bold question. Is consciousness truly confined to the brain, or can it exist beyond it? Whether you see NDEs as spiritual truths or neurological mysteries, they invite us to reconsider what it means to be alive. Maybe we're not just physical bodies with a ticking clock. Maybe we're part of something far more expansive, and death is just a bend in the road, not the end of it. But here's a twist. You don't have to nearly die to get a glimpse beyond this reality. Sometimes these peeks into other worlds come while we're still dreaming. And that brings us to something strange and wonderful. Your dreams might not be just dreams. 5. The science of multiple realities. Many worlds, many you imagine standing in front of a door. It's a door to another version of your life. You step through, and suddenly you're living a reality where every choice you made has led to a different outcome. What if I told you that this idea, that there are multiple versions of you living in parallel realities, isn't just some wild fantasy, but a concept rooted in science? Meet the many worlds theory. This theory, proposed by physicist Hugh Everett in the 1950s, suggests that for every decision we make, a new universe branches off, creating an entirely different reality. Think of it like this. You're about to pick a restaurant for dinner. In one reality, you choose sushi. In another, you pick Italian. And in yet another, you decide to cook at home. Simple? Sure. But these small, everyday choices could be creating infinite versions of you, each one living out a different path. This idea is more than just theory. It's backed by quantum mechanics. In the world of tiny particles, things are often in many states at once, until we observe them. In a way, the universe is split at every moment of observation, and each version of reality continues to exist side by side. It's like a giant cosmic tree, where every choice we make grows a new branch, creating endless possibilities. Imagine if you could peer into one of those realities. What would you see? Who would you be? What could you learn from your other selves? And what if this is more than just a thought experiment? Here's the lesson. Every moment is full of potential. Every choice you make sends you down a new path. And while we can't yet see these parallel realities, we can start to feel them. Every decision, no matter how small, can change your world and who you are. So why not choose the path that feels the most authentic to you? But what if these realities aren't just limited to the choices you make here and now? What if the parallel worlds are intertwined with our consciousness in ways we can't even begin to understand? That's where things get even more mind-bending. And that's what we'll explore next, as we dive into how these realities might affect our dreams, our thoughts, and even our very sense of self. 6. What is consciousness? Really imagine, for a moment, you're sitting quietly in a room, your thoughts are drifting. You're aware of the sounds around you, the gentle rhythm of your breath, the feeling of your body in space. But where exactly is you in all of this? It's as though you're the observer, the one who experiences everything, but you're also aware of that experience. That awareness is what we call consciousness. But here's the thing, despite how familiar consciousness feels, it remains one of the biggest mysteries in science and philosophy. How do we, as humans, become aware of ourselves, our surroundings, and our own thoughts? And more importantly, what is it that's truly experiencing all of this? One leading theory is that consciousness is like a stream of awareness, a continuous flow of thoughts, perceptions, and experiences. Yet, even scientists have a hard time explaining how the brain, with all its neurons and electrical impulses, can produce this sense of self-awareness. Some think that consciousness might be a fundamental property of the universe, like gravity or time. Others believe it's a complex result of neural processes, but we're still piecing it all together. Here's a simple way to think about it. Imagine you're watching a movie. You can see the characters, the plot unfolding, the camera angles shifting. But there's someone watching the movie too. That someone is your consciousness, the part of you that observes and experiences the world. Without consciousness, the movie wouldn't exist for you. You wouldn't be able to recognize the beauty, the plot, or even the emotions the movie brings out. It's the same with life. We go through our days, engaging with the world, making choices, feeling emotions. But who's really doing all of that? Who's in the driver's seat of your experience? Here's the lesson. Consciousness is what allows you to experience life, to be aware of being alive. But the deeper question is, are we in control of it, or is there something more? Something beyond our individual selves, shaping our experiences. As we look at all the theories surrounding consciousness, we begin to realize that the more we know, the more we realize how much we don't. And that mystery is one of the most beautiful things about being human. And that mystery might just be connected to something even greater, the vastness of our existence. What if consciousness doesn't just exist here, in this single reality, but flows across multiple worlds, across different versions of you? What if you can experience your other selves in ways you've never imagined before? Let's continue to explore this, because this question leads us to the deeper connections between consciousness and the reality you're living right now. 7. The trap of materialism. Why the physical world isn't the whole story. Have you ever felt like you're stuck in the rat race? Waking up every morning, checking off a list of tasks, work, bills, responsibilities, constantly striving for more stuff, more success, more recognition? It's easy to get caught up in the material world, in the idea that everything that matters can be touched, measured, or bought. But here's the thing, the material world, as real as it feels, isn't the whole story. In fact, it might just be a small piece of the bigger puzzle. Materialism, the belief that physical matter is the only reality, has shaped our worldview for centuries. We're taught to value tangible things, houses, cars, gadgets, status. But what if there's more to life than what we can see and touch? What if the most important parts of your life aren't things at all? Take a moment and think about something intangible, like love, or a memory that makes you smile. Can you touch love? Can you hold on to that memory physically? And yet, these feelings, these experiences are as real to you as anything else in the world. We've all had moments that remind us, the things that truly make life rich aren't necessarily physical objects. Relationships, emotions, dreams, these are what give our lives meaning. And they can't be measured by any ruler, weighed on any scale, or bought in any store. Here's the lesson. Materialism, while useful in some ways, limits our understanding of the world. It can trap us in a cycle of chasing external things, thinking they'll give us happiness and fulfillment. But true fulfillment often comes from the intangible, the things that can't be seen or touched, like connection, creativity, and inner peace. The material world is a part of our experience, But it's far from the whole picture. What if the key to understanding your true potential lies in things that go beyond the physical, in realms of thought, consciousness, and even alternate realities? Let's take this thought further. The world of energy, consciousness, and unseen forces might hold the key to unlocking the mysteries of your existence. And understanding this could lead us to a deeper connection with not just our own lives, but with everything around us. As we move on, let's look at how these invisible forces might actually shape our reality in ways we've never imagined. Are we merely existing in a material world, or are there other dimensions of experience waiting to be explored? 8. Real-life mystics and thinkers who saw beyond the physical. Throughout history, there have been individuals who have seen beyond the veil of the physical world. People who have dared to look at life not just through the lens of matter, but through the eyes of the unseen. These were mystics, thinkers, and visionaries who believed that the true nature of reality wasn't confined to what we can see, hear, or touch. Take Leonardo da Vinci, for example. Most people know him as a brilliant painter, but he was also an inventor, a philosopher, and a man deeply fascinated with the mysteries of the universe. He saw the interconnectedness of everything, from the swirling patterns of nature to the hidden mathematics of life. Da Vinci believed that everything, even the physical world, was a reflection of something greater, a universal force that we might never fully comprehend. Or consider Carl Jung, the famous psychologist. Jung proposed that there's a collective unconscious that transcends our personal experiences. He believed that there are archetypes, universal symbols and ideas that shape our thoughts, dreams, and behaviors beyond what we can see in our daily lives. Jung didn't just view the mind as a collection of neurons firing. He believed the mind connects us to something far deeper, something spiritual and metaphysical. These thinkers didn't just see the world as a collection of material objects. They understood that there was a deeper reality waiting to be discovered, one that transcended our physical senses. But it's not just scientists and philosophers who've glimpsed the unseen. Throughout history, mystics and spiritual leaders have explored dimensions of consciousness beyond the physical. Rumi, the 13th century poet, wrote about the vast, unseeable truths of the universe, urging us to look inward for answers. Buddha, who achieved enlightenment, taught us that true wisdom comes not from the physical world, but from a deeper understanding of our inner selves. These thinkers, many of whom didn't have the scientific tools we have today, saw something beyond the physical world and spent their lives sharing their insights with us. The lesson here is that reality as we know it is just one layer of a much larger, more complex existence. These visionaries, from different cultures and times, understood that the universe is not just the material world around us, but something far more profound. And just like them, we too have the potential to see beyond the physical, if we open our minds and hearts to the possibility. So what does this mean for you and me? It suggests that if we only focus on the material world, we're missing out on the fullness of reality. It's like looking at the surface of a painting without understanding the emotions or stories behind it. And as we close this chapter of our exploration, we move toward understanding the most intriguing question of all. What if we could tap into the unseen forces, the deeper dimensions of life, to reshape the way we experience the world? 9. What if death is just a door? Imagine for a moment that death isn't the end, but simply a door, one we walk through to the next part of our journey. In many cultures, death has been seen not as a finality, but as a transition, a passage to something new, perhaps even something beyond our current understanding. Think about near-death experiences. People who have been clinically dead, only to be revived, often describe encounters with bright lights, feelings of overwhelming peace, or even meeting loved ones who've passed before them. For many of these individuals, death wasn't something to fear, but a doorway to a greater, more expansive reality. One notable example is the story of Dr. Eben Alexander, a renowned neurosurgeon who had a profound near-death experience. After falling into a coma due to a rare brain infection, Dr. Alexander experienced a journey into a heavenly realm filled with vibrant colors and a sense of boundless love. He later wrote a book called Proof of Heaven, sharing his belief that consciousness exists beyond the physical brain, and that death is merely a passage to another state of being. These stories are powerful reminders that death might not be the end, but a doorway to something greater. It's a shift in perspective that can be incredibly freeing. Rather than fearing the unknown, we can see it as part of a much larger journey, one that stretches beyond the confines of our physical bodies. If we start to see death as a door rather than a destination, it can transform the way we live. We might begin to feel less burdened by the fear of the unknown and more focused on living in the present, knowing that this life is just one chapter in a much larger story. So, if death is just a door, then what lies beyond it? What if we're meant to embrace the mystery, knowing that there's more to this existence than meets the eye? In the next part of our exploration, we'll dive deeper into the possibility that life, death, and consciousness might be part of a much bigger interconnected web that we're only beginning to understand. 10. So what now? Living like consciousness never dies. Now that we've explored the idea that consciousness might be eternal and that death could be just a transition, what does that mean for how we live today? If we truly embrace the idea that consciousness never dies, how would our lives look different? It's a question that could change everything. From the way we approach our relationships to how we deal with challenges and even how we understand our place in the universe. One of the most profound shifts is how we begin to live with purpose and presence. Imagine no longer fearing the inevitable end, but instead focusing on making the most of the time we have now. This shift in mindset can lead to deeper connections, more meaningful experiences, and a life filled with gratitude. Take the example of Maya Angelou, the renowned poet and activist, who once said, "You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them." She lived with the belief that her consciousness, her essence, was something that transcended the physical challenges she faced. She didn't let fear of death or hardship stop her from living fully, and her legacy continues to inspire us today. When we live like consciousness never dies, we also begin to see life with a sense of clarity. Every moment becomes more precious because we know that we are part of something larger than ourselves. It's not about rushing through life, but rather being present, fully immersed in each interaction, each experience. It's about understanding that the love, the joy, and the wisdom we cultivate here and now are not fleeting. They are eternal parts of our consciousness that live on, even beyond our physical form. So, how can we start living like consciousness never dies? Start small. Practice gratitude daily. Cherish your relationships and prioritize what truly matters. Let go of the small fears and anxieties that hold you back. Embrace the unknown, knowing that it's all part of the grand journey. Most importantly, remember, you are more than just your body. You are consciousness, a part of the endless flow of existence. By living with this awareness, we can begin to truly appreciate the beauty of life, knowing that our consciousness is eternal, and this is just one chapter in a much greater story. As we conclude our journey today, remember that the answers to life's biggest questions might not always be clear, but the journey itself is the most meaningful part. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of consciousness, life, and death. It's a vast topic with many mysteries, but as we continue to seek, we can be sure that there's more to discover. And who knows, maybe the greatest discoveries lie within us all along. Stay curious, stay present, and remember, your consciousness is eternal.